What is up, you guys? I am Alan Hamilton, and I actually have been meaning to make this video for a while. I just wasn't quite sure the best way to go about it, and honestly, I have trouble talking about my feelings. I don't know if it's a macho thing, but I don't know, it's weird. So I figured, fuck it, I'm just gonna throw it all out on the table. This is my coming out story, so obviously I've been out for a long time, and I'm happy with myself and I'm confident, but I haven't always been that way. There was a point in time when I hated myself for it, when I wished desperately that I could change it, and when I tried to change it but couldn't. Every time I meet somebody new, I have to come out of the closet, and it was funny, a friend of mine the other day was just like, well, you're not that gay, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I mean, like, you don't fit the stereotype at all. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Like, not that there's anything wrong with fitting the stereotype. It's just I want to be an individual. And of course, if some things overlap, if I do fit the stereotype a little bit, that's fine. But I just want to be known as me and not that gay guy. So, on some level, I always knew I was gay. I always knew that I was different. You know, growing up, you don't really know how. You know that society wants you to be a certain way, especially growing up in the 90s. I mean, the 90s were right after the 80s, and the 80s were not a good time in gay history. I mean, there were worse times, but, you know, with the AIDS epidemic starting up, gays getting blamed for it, you know, there was this stigma that carried well over into the 90s, and there just weren't a lot of positive attitudes. I do remember vaguely when Ellen DeGeneres came out of the closet. I do remember my mom bringing it up. My mom's always been very gay friendly, and she's always known. And, you know, she was like, oh, Ellen DeGeneres came out of the closet, and that's okay. So, you know, it was nice of her to lay the groundwork for me to become the confident and secure person I am now. But Ellen didn't get a very good reception when she came out of the closet. Her show got canceled. She kind of faded into obscurity for a while. Just the 90s weren't the best time for gays. And when I was growing up, I just know that society expected me to be with a woman one day. And so I just assumed that one day I would get married to a woman, I would have a wife. I didn't really know what I was feeling. I mean, I remember watching the original Power Rangers, and it was awesome. They've sucked ever since, but, you know, back then it was cool. And I thought I had a crush on the Pink Ranger, and you know what? Maybe I did. I did have a crush on the Pink Ranger because I knew that she was pretty, and she is pretty. And I thought that's what attraction was, because obviously I was like just barely hitting puberty, and so I didn't know what sexual attraction was. I didn't know what it felt like. But I did know that I had a particular fondness for the Green Ranger. And I just kind of like, I didn't know what it was, so I just was like, oh, I really want to know him, and I really want to be his friend. Once again, early on in my life, I didn't know what budding attraction was. I didn't know what these feelings were. But that feeling just kind of like, it intensified. I don't know how to describe it, but it was very distinct, and I haven't felt it, obviously, in the past, like, decade, because I've been out for a long time. But there was this feeling of yearning and hopelessness that, you know, just kind of like, it came in very subtly and insidiously, and then it just became all-consuming. And then that's when I started puberty, and that's when I started spiraling into a severe depression. In 1999, and most of you guys know this already, I am a big well, not that big anymore, but I am a computer nerd. You know, I play video games. I play Heroes of the Storm. But when I was in 1999, when I was, I don't know, 12, my parents bought me a computer because we were all addicted to EverQuest, which was, I think it was like the first 3D MMORPG, and we were all addicted to it. My mom, my brother, me, my dad still to this day has a vendetta against it because, you know, he's like, why is it eating my family alive? And so, you know, we all had computers, we all had internet access, and I'm just gonna say it. I downloaded porn. And I thought what I was expected to watch was, you know, something with a man and a woman, and honestly, it was more of a novelty than anything else. Like, it wasn't like it didn't excite me completely. It was like, oh, this is cool, so this is what adults do. But I didn't quite know what it was that I wanted. I thought that was what I was expected to want, and, you know, that was the mold I was expected to fit into, so I tried. And, you know, in school, I would still heckle kids, and I'd call them gay, and I'd call them fags, but I didn't really, like, I knew what it meant, but I didn't know what it meant, if that makes sense. Like, I knew that gay meant, you know, liking other dudes, but there was, like, layers and layers of other connotations on that word. It was more of like, this is something that's bad, this is something that's shameful, this is something that's pitiful, something that should, you know, be abhorred. That was kind of the connotation it had at the time for me and for, you know, my peers. That's kind of why I used it. I never really, like, when I would tease people, I never thought, oh, well, they probably like boys. It was just, you know, oh, well, this is the word that other people are using to insult people, you know, I need to fit in, I'm gonna do it too. So I think it was in about like 1999, 2000, when my parents announced that they were splitting up. That was pretty shitty. The whole family was going through a really rough time. My brother was going through a particularly rough time. You know, I have an older brother, a couple years older, and so he was hitting all this shit before I did, you know, going through depression and he was acting out, and I had done my fair share of acting out, but I just remember at that time, like, the thought of, you know, my parents no longer being together. I would always see, you know, other kids with divorced parents. You know, my best friend's parents were divorced, and I just remember thinking, you know, it must be hard for them to go from one parent to the other, having to split time, having to split holidays. You know, I couldn't imagine doing that myself. I just knew that I was going to have to move about an hour south of where I had been living, where I had been growing up, and it was scary to me because, like, I was going to have to leave all my friends behind. You know, I had a very solid group of friends. It was like the world was ending, you know, you're just barely a teenager. I was like 13. And, you know, you really think the world is coming to an end because, you know, great, I've got to start over, you know, it was just not a good time. And what made it worse is, you know, these feelings, these, you know, urges were coming up. When you're feeling something that you can't help but feel, but you know, you think that you're not supposed to be feeling it, you think it's shameful, it just inspires so much self-doubt, so much, you know, low self-esteem, so much self-hatred. It's not good. And so I think kind of like my parents' divorce, having to move and start all over, and having to deal with these feelings kind of like culminated in this terrible slump that I went into in my teenage years. And I became totally something I'm not. Like, I went into this severe depression where I was always angry, and I just hated people, and I really honestly wished malice upon people, which is not like me at all. But at that time, this, you know, depression, this, you know, self-loathing completely muted my ability to feel compassion and to feel empathy towards strangers. When you're a teenager, you're extremely self-centered. And so I was obviously a lot more obsessed with what I was going through than what my friends were going through. And luckily, I had a group of friends that were very protective and loving. So during my freshman year of high school is, I think, when the shit really started hitting the fan. Like I said, my personality completely changed on all fronts. You know, I really withdrew. You know, I had never been a straight A student, but my grades dropped to the point where I considered a D- a triumph because, oh, it's still passing. The only way I can think to describe it is this ever-present crushing feeling of ickiness, and I always had this pain in the pit of my stomach. I developed severe body image issues, and I was skipping a lot of meals. And then, of course, you know, I had started watching adult films with strictly men, and I remember distinctly thinking, oh, you know, I'm just going to enjoy this for now, and then I'll go straight later. That is how heavy the denial was. So this is kind of like a memory that I haven't really shared with a lot of people. I was kind of embarrassed, and then I just kind of like put it away and forgot about it. But I used to walk home, and there was this guy that came up and started talking to me as we were walking home, and that's cool. And he comes up and starts talking, and he was a good looking guy. He was Indian. He had kind of a thick accent, so he was probably feeling kind of like an outsider. So, we'd walk home, and we did it for a few days, and so finally he's like, hey, let's take a shortcut through this park. And I remember thinking, it's not a shortcut though, it's gonna make it longer, but whatever. I'm like, sure. So we go in there, and then he wants a hug goodbye, and then he wants a kiss. And I remember thinking, no way is my first kiss gonna be with a guy. No. And so I got really uncomfortable, and I kind of pushed him away, and I'm like, I don't think I'm okay with this. And so we never talked again. It was just something I wasn't ready for, and I feel bad. I really hope he found everything that he was looking for, but at the time it just wasn't a good time for me. And you got to understand that sometimes people just aren't receptive to something that they would be receptive to later on. My final project for my drama class in freshman year, we had a group project. And there was this guy in my group who was really attractive, and he was actually in his senior year, and I was still a freshman, and I didn't know it, but I had a big crush on him. I didn't know what it was. I thought I just wanted to be his friend. I, wanted to hang out with him. That's what I thought it was. And I remember, like, after the project was over, and it really started sinking in that, well, this was more than a desire for a platonic relationship. I mean, he was straight, totally nice guy, but he had his own life, was into girls, whatever. But it really kind of started to sink in that, well, this desire is for more than a platonic relationship. And that's when, like, it kind of started crushing down on me that, well, shit, I don't think this is something I can change. This is something I can't deny anymore. And I went into a really bad depression that week, and I really don't cry often. It's very rare that I cry. I don't know. I mean, unless there are extenuating circumstances, I only really cry like once every few years, tops. I cried that entire week, and I remember, like, I would go to school and I would just have my head down like the whole time, because I was just like, I didn't want to do anything, I didn't want to think, I didn't want to feel. I'm so glad I hadn't discovered alcohol yet. And my friends would be like, are you okay? They knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't ready to come out. I wasn't ready to tell anybody. That was kind of like a really shitty time. It was just the final realization before the denial set back in was pretty heavy. So in my freshman year, through some of the friends that I had been hanging out with, I had met this girl named Jennifer, and we got along great. She was, and still is, fucking awesome. I was walking home early sophomore year, and I saw her walking the same direction, so I kind of came up and I was like, hey, you're Jennifer, right? You're Kim's friend. And she's like, yeah. And so, we started walking home, and we developed a friendship, and she actually became one of my best friends still to this day. I mean, we got matching tattoos. So one of my friends from the city I grew up in was named Brian, and we had maintained a good friendship even though I had moved. And it was a good hour both ways from where I grew up to where I was living now, but he would still come over periodically and we'd hang out. And I remember one of my best birthdays ever was when a bunch of my friends from the city I grew up in came to the city I was living in at the time, and we just had a killer time. It was like my old friends got to meet my new friends, and Brian had always been a very good friend, a very protective friend, and just one of the greatest things that could have happened to me. Kind of like Jennifer, it was an instant platonic attraction, and we were just, inseparable. So I had a really strong support system that I know a lot of people don't have. And even though I was still in the closet at this particular time, I do know that if I had told Brian, he would have been totally accepting. And when I told Jennifer, she was, like I said, one of the greatest assets I had nearby, accessible at that time. She was so protective and loving and awesome. So I think one of the first crushes I had, I'm not going to use their real names, just, I don't know, for privacy's sake, but this first guy, I'm going to call him Max. He was kind of like a weirdo, kind of like a nerd. That's probably why we got along so well, because I had that in common with him, and we just kind of like started getting along really well. He started coming over and spending the night. I actually had bunk beds, even though like I was my brother was living with my dad and I was living with my mom. I still had bunk beds because they were the bunk beds me and my brother shared when, my parents were married. So, we each had a bed. I had finally mustered the courage to come out to him. I think this was after I came out to Jennifer, and she had shown me great support. And so I finally got the courage to come out to him. And luckily, he was very non-issue about it. Like, he was really cool about it. And, we had become pretty close, and we'd hang out all the time. And the issue was he was straight. And so nothing would ever come of that, Eventually, we kind of drifted apart, and, we lost touch. I actually had a really weird dream about him a couple of years back, that I had run into him at it was like a gas station. I was buying an energy drink, but they were out of energy drinks, so I bought a burrito instead. And I was like, hey, we ought to hang out. I got to get going, but we ought to hang out. And he was like, yeah, let me give you my number. So I programmed his number into my burrito and left. But I mean, he was pretty, it was a good experience to have a friend, a male friend that was just totally accepting and awesome about it and supportive, but it hurt at the same time too, because he was getting into girls, and he was talking to girls, and it kind of sucked, because it's I knew that I couldn't have what I wanted from him. And sophomore year is when my self-image issues kind of spiraled out of control. I started skipping meals, and meals ended up becoming days, and days started becoming multiple days. There was also, when I would skip meals, it was a little bit of punishment. I was angry that I was having feelings for men, and so it was kind of like a way of punishing myself. No, you don't get to eat. I know that sounds awful, and this is probably something a lot of people feel, but that's what I was going through at the time. So around this time, I had met this girl, I'm gonna call her Bree. She did read my coming out story on Tumblr, and she was totally awesome about it, but I still value privacy. Anyways, I had met her through some friends, and I think we kind of clicked because we were both going through a pretty rough time, obviously for different reasons. And I think this was my junior year, and we started hanging out a lot, and then we started dating, high school dating, for a week, 2 weeks. And it was nice. The attention was nice, and when we would make out, I always try to make sure that there was an audience, because it was look, I'm not gay. I was, like Tom Cruise on Oprah's couch. I'm not gay, I love Katie Holmes. My friends didn't like it. My friends that I was out to didn't like it, because I think they knew that I was slipping. I was slipping backwards. I was thinking, well, this is my opportunity to maybe kind of steer myself in a different direction. And, finally, we were teenagers, and it was about that time, so she offered herself to me, and I just wasn't feeling it. I was not into women, so I declined. And then after that, we kind of broke up, and like I said, I've been in touch with her recently, and she's doing fantastic. You know, I don't want anybody to think that there's any animosity between us. So this was my junior year. So I was a big Lifehouse fan at this point in my life, obviously, because they were really emo, I was really emo. Not like in the like dressing in all black kind of emo, but just in a whiny kind of way. But around that time, I met this guy, we're gonna call him Max 2, and he was cute. And you know, he was really nice, and you know, I had developed what I thought were feelings for him, and so finally I came out of the closet to him, and once again, very accepting. I mean, I was so fortunate to have, you know, the instinct to come out to people who were going to be supportive, and he's, you know, he was straight, but I'll never forget, he's like, oh, well, I don't want you to think this affects our friendship in any way. I mean, if you need me, I'm here for you. And I told him that I did have feelings for him, and he was a total gentleman. He really liked this girl, and, you know, he used to talk about her all the time, but after I came out, you know, he kind of quieted down a bit because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. Total fucking gentleman, right? Great guy, still to this day. Remember how I said I wasn't getting very good grades and my grades dropped? It was to the point where in some classes I was literally getting a 0%. I was cutting so much class that, like, they put, I didn't even try to hide it anymore. Like, I wouldn't, you know, try to forge a letter from my parents. I wouldn't have people call in for me, because we used to have to get these admit slips, so I would just walk up to the window and be like, yeah, I cut school yesterday. And so they'd be like, okay, and they just sign it as truancy. And it got to the point where they're like, okay, just letting you know that you are not allowed to miss any more school unless you have a doctor's note. Because I was literally cutting 1 day a week. I can't believe that I was so neglectful of my responsibilities. So they said that if I were to miss another day, I would need a doctor's note. So I got a doctor's note, and they pulled me out of school. And they ended up putting me into independent studies, because you can't cut independent studies because you're just doing it at home. Around this time, I kind of met this other guy, we'll call him Max 3, and he was a really nice guy. It turns out his dad was gay. He was really accepting of it, and a big advocate. He wasn't gay himself, but you know, when you're exposed to it and you see, oh, it's not that big of a deal. So I don't know why, but I think it was because of his open and vocal support of the gay community that I really felt an attraction to him, because I thought, oh, well, he's good looking, and maybe like something could come of this. It didn't. I didn't come out to him until later, like way later, but I remember when it was confirmed that, yeah, he doesn't feel any attraction towards men, but, you know, he supports people who do. Like, it was really upsetting, and I just, like, cried and, like, went home. And around this time, like, I was spending a lot of time, you know, at friends' house. We were just, like, all really attached to each other in that time. I was just talking to my buddy Lizzie the other day about how we were always together. We were always at someone's house. We were at Jennifer's house. We were at my friend Crystal's house. We were at my house. I don't know. We were just all over the place. I guess that was probably good that I wasn't alone through this. I remember the night I came out to my friend Crystal, because she had this collage of men up in her room, like shirtless guys and cute guys, you know, clippings from like magazines and whatnot. And I remember we'd go and hang out at her place, and I would always try not to stare, but you know, my eyes were just like being pulled to it, you know, pubescent guy, horny as fuck. Bunch of like shirtless dudes. You just, still to this day, I'd probably be like looking over there, and it was like a little disheartening, because it's like, well, I can't feel what I'm feeling, I can't be myself. So it was Valentine's Day, and I was depressed as all hell, because like my friends were kind of like, you know, meeting with guys or girls depending on what gender they were. And so I went over to my friend Crystal's house, and because she didn't have a boyfriend at that time, so I came over, and I guess she thought that I was gonna like say that I liked her, but I told her that I was gay, and she was kind of bummed. But then a guy actually called her that night, and I guess they dated for a while, but I told her that I was gay, and that was kind of like a relief, because then it was like, okay, now I'm gonna stare at your wall. Yeah, and then that's kind of when the shit hit the fan again. The city we were living in, my mom couldn't afford to stay in, so she announced that we were going to be moving again. I was a junior in high school, going through this severe depression, and so when she announced we were moving again, I thought it was the end of the world, and I went into this terrible depression again. I went deeper into the depression, completely withdrew again. The problem was, by the time we got to the city that we were moving to then, I was in independent studies. I didn't really have a lot of ways of making friends. Social media wasn't well developed, so I became a complete and utter recluse. It was a really bad period in my life. I was on a lot of antidepressants. I was actually seeing a pretty amazing therapist though, and she helped me out a lot. She was amazing. She was so young. She was fresh out of college. In fact, I think she was still doing hours to try to get like her certification or something. And I'll never forget how I came out to her. I was too scared to tell her myself, so I gave her my MP3 player, because I've always been a big lover of music. Since day fucking one, I've always loved music, and so I gave her my MP3 player, and I played all the things she said by Tattoo. My heart sank when she's like, "Are you gay?" And I just kind of nodded my head, and she's like, "Okay." Because I was talking, she knew something was bothering me. She knew that there was an issue, that there was something present that was bothering me, but I was unable to articulate what it was. And from that point, like opening up to her, and she was another person who was very, very gay friendly. Opening up to her was one of the best things that I had done, and going to see her was one of the best things that my parents could have done for me. And it just kind of like, it kind of snowballed into health. But it was still kind of a hard time. It was still kind of a rough time. And so finally, I was so isolated. I was so unhappy. And I wasn't doing well in school. Actually, I take that back. No, I was doing fantastic in school, because I was back in independent studies, and the teacher I was seeing, her name was Mrs. Coate, and she was awesome. And I was getting terrible grades, and she finally sits me down. She's like, "Look, Alan, there are people that are trying to get into the system, that are trying to get into this program, and you're already in it, and you're not applying yourself, but you're smart. You need to start applying yourself, otherwise we might not be able to keep you in this program." And it was out of genuine concern. It wasn't a threat. It was out of genuine concern that, she might not be able to keep me in this program. And so I was like, okay, fine. And then all of a sudden I started getting like straight A's. So I actually was doing really well in school, but I was just ready to have it over with. So I took this exam that it gave you like the equivalent of a high school diploma. I took it and I failed the math portion, because I've never been good in math, and I just didn't really give a shit. But I passed the English portion apparently really well. I got a pretty high grade. And then I took it again, and I only had to take the math portion because I had passed the English portion with flying colors, and I passed this time because I had actually applied myself, and I didn't tire myself out reading, with the reading comprehension portion like I did the time before. So I was free. I was free from high school. And so it was at that point I'm like, okay, well, fuck this shit. I'm moving in with my dad. And so my dad had this 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath condo. He still lives there. And it was in the Bay Area-ish, kind of, of California. And so I was like, there's going to be more opportunities there for me. There's going to be more happiness there for me. So I was like, okay, fuck the world. I'm going to live with my dad. And my dad is one of my best friends. He's so awesome. And so he did everything he could, even though I didn't have a bedroom. I was literally living underneath the stairs. He did everything he could to try to make me feel comfortable. The stairs were open, and I had my computer under there, so he gave me a sheet that I could put up so I would have a little bit of privacy. And he bought me a fold-out couch so I would have a place of my own to sleep. And, he just was doing everything he could to try to accommodate me, which was awesome. It's great to have a dad so devoted. My brother was dating this girl named Valerie at the time, and Valerie was an odd duck. She was odd, but in the beginning she was pretty cool, and she had a lot of gay friends. That was kind of cool. And so I started going to college, and I was 17. I was so burned out on school that was just not good timing, and I ended up like dropping out. And she was really cool. She was really into academics. She loved college, and so she was really excited to take me in and get me registered and all this other crap. And so finally, because she had so many gay friends, I was like, okay, I'm gonna come out to her. So I told her, and I told her that online I had found there was an LGBT youth center in the city I was living in, pretty close to my dad's place. And I was scared to go, just because I was still in the closet. So finally she's like, well, I'll take you. And so we went, and they're like, oh, yeah, we got a youth group. I think it was like every Monday night or something. I started going to that. And so me and Brian had been hanging out a lot since I had been back in that area. We had been friends like consistently throughout, from kindergarten up until that point. And my buddy Lizzie calls me one day, and I'll never forget this. She calls me, and I was kind of excited to talk to her, and she's like, Alan, there's something serious like that I need to tell you. There was an accident between Brian and Neil. Brian passed away. And this is another thing that I made a video about. I actually edited it, and I was ready to export it, but I'm like, this is so personal. So I'll probably put it up at a later date, and I will show you the tattoo that I got the other day. It's kind of a memorial for Brian. He was, such a presence and a good friend to me, very protective and loving. And, after he passed away, his online handle or something was Phoenix. And I remember we went to summer camp several summers like in a row. And one year I was like, because he's like, call me Phoenix. And I'm like, I'm going to call you Phoenix. I thought I was the funniest kid in the world back then. I'll take my shirt off and show you guys at the end of this video, which will probably be like right now through the power of editing. But that's when I started spiraling again. And it was bad. It was a bad time for that to happen because A, he was 17, B, because he was an awesome person and the world is losing out not having him in it. And I was in the process of coming out. I had made gay friends, but I was still living kind of a dual life. I had my friends that I was still in the closet with, and these were some of my friends from the city I grew up in. That I was hanging out with a lot, and I kind of had a girlfriend. I feel kind of bad, I kind of ghosted. She was great though. I went into this bad depression, and I didn't want to be at home, because at home was where we spent a lot of time. We had a lot of LAN parties. He used to bring his computer over, and he would set up in the kitchen, I'd be in the living room, my brother would be up in his bedroom, and we would play Warcraft 3. And there were so many memories of him in that condo. So I left. One of my friends named Cheyenne from college, his grandmother was moving in. They were remodeling to accommodate, her. And so I was like, hey, I'll help you if you let me stay here. And so luckily he had a great family. He came from a great family, and he was gay, his sister was gay, he actually had a twin brother. They weren't identical, but his twin brother was oddly enough straight. But having two gay siblings, extremely accepting, total non-issue. And he was such a nice guy, very protective. This was a good family, and their mother was so sweet and like just, to take me in. She didn't really know what was going on. Wasn't really talking about it. But, she was just like, oh, Alan, you're being so helpful. She'd buy pizza. I actually was not eating a lot. I had dropped weight yet again. I didn't want to wear out my welcome, so eventually I left. And I came back home, and things weren't good. My dad was really upset, not angry upset. He was just, he was worried about me bad. And he is one of those parents that knew that I was able to have this amount of freedom even though I was still 17. I was able to have this freedom, and he gave it to me. But he was still worried, and he was still, Brian was a part of my family. My parents adored him. My whole family was hit hard by this. And so, like, they knew shit was bad. Shit was not good. And Valerie knew that I was gay, and this is kind of like what obliterated our friendship. One night I was on my computer. I didn't have a room. I was in the living room, and they were watching TV, and finally they wanted to talk. It was like she was trying to stage an intervention, and they wanted to talk. And she's like, Alan, if there's something you want to tell us, tell us. And it's like, there's nothing I want to tell you guys. Leave me alone. And she was getting very insistent, and I knew what she was trying to do. She was trying to get me to come out of the closet, but I was not ready. And people who, haven't dealt with this don't understand that it doesn't matter if you know. It doesn't matter if you're accepting. If somebody's not ready to come out, they're not ready to come out. And she was trying to drag me out of the closet. And at that point, I just started bawling like a fucking baby because I couldn't process all this information, and I couldn't have this kind of pressure on me. I was cracking. And, I just was like, I have lost my faith in humanity. The way that Brian died, it wasn't fair. The circumstances were not fair, and it really kind of affected my worldview. So I met this guy online, named Salvador, but he went by Sal, and so I just kind of like hightailed it. And his mom was gone, she was like out of town, and so he had the condo to himself, and so I went over there and I spent a few days with him, and it was nice. He had a car. And, we'd go out, we'd go around. One time we went to this really ghetto-ass party in San Mateo. In really the ghetto, and it was fun. But, when you're 17, you haven't had a lot of experience. You think that you're in love. And, honestly, I probably scared the shit out of him, because I got really clingy, really fast. I take full responsibility. Like, I scared him away. It was all my fault. So I scared him away, and then I ended up back at home, and things were starting to improve at this point, but, and then I met this other guy, and, I'd go over to his house periodically, but I wouldn't spend a long time there. I think I only stayed the night once. And then one night my mom was over, because, my parents, they're still friends. My mom was over, and I realized I'm tired of telling her you don't understand. I'm tired of saying you don't understand, because she's not going to understand unless I tell her what I'm going through. She's not going to understand unless I let her. It was me, my brother, and my mom downstairs, and I'm like, Mom, I need to talk to you. Can we go out to the car? And she's like, sure. So I go out, and there was a lot of trepidation, but finally I'm just like, I'm gay. And, my mom was always very gay friendly. She still is. And so it was a non-issue, and, she was very happy I told her. That was kind of like an upturn in my life, because it was like finally I was able to connect to my family again. I was not segregated, but I was getting in fights with my brother because, like, even though he's one of my best friends, I absolutely am totally close to my brother. We're both very headstrong, and I think we kind of like bump heads if we live together. So we were fighting, and Valerie wasn't helping. She was going through kind of a rough time in her defense. So I just kind of left everything behind. This life that I had cultivated, my friends, I had a very active social life, and I just kind of left it all behind and disappeared. And that might have been a good thing, because like I said, I had a dual life. I had my friends that I could be open with, and the friends that I was in the closet with. And so when I finally moved back to this tiny ass city, my mom introduced me to this guy, and I had talked to a few guys, in Fremont, and none of them really wanted anything serious, you know, they just were looking to have a good time. And at that point in time, I wanted more. And so this guy was older, he wasn't very attractive, but he was very charismatic. And my mom really wanted us to be together, she really kind of pushed it, so I was like, okay. And so, you know, we got involved, and well, that was not good. He was pretty crazy. Didn't see it at first though. The crazy didn't come out until later. But during this time, you know, I came out to my father, and by proxy my brother. And I couldn't tell my dad in person. I don't know why. My dad he's awesome. But I did it through email, and he was very supportive, still is. When I was going through troubles with my latest ex-boyfriend, I went over to his place, and you know, he let me vent, and we had a great time. And I was working at a hardware store, and I was still kind of in the closet, and I had this really good friend named Angela. And you know, people would always say, are they dating or is he gay? Because at this point, like, you know, I am who I am, you know, I'm not gonna not be who I am, but I hadn't confirmed anything. But I was talking to guys, and you know, I was pretty much out at this point. The end of my coming out process pretty much happened when I was working at Circuit City. I got hired at Circuit City, and there were these two great, actually there was a shit ton of really awesome people that worked there. I really enjoyed working there, they just weren't giving me enough hours and the pay was shit. This was like right before they shut down. And these two girls that I particularly connected with were both named Julie. Actually, I've had three friends that have really changed the course of my history. Brian, Jennifer, and Juliana, who I met at Circuit City. And so Julietta, the other Julie, finally just walks up and she's like, are you gay? But it wasn't in a threatening way. It was in a like, hey, like, if you're gay, I want to be your friend. Like, you know, I like gay people. And some people might be offended by that, but I'm not, you know. It doesn't bother me. And so it was like, yes, I am gay. And at that point, I was totally out. I was dating this new guy named Caesar, but it was just time. It was just time for me to be out and to be honest, because I had money, I had a car, I had, you know, I had a great social life, I had friends, I had a boyfriend, and I was out of the closet. I was liberated. My family knew, because I had given everybody the okay to talk about it. I had given my mom the okay to talk about it. I had given my dad the okay, my brother. And I think knowing, I'm not that close to my mom's side of the family, but knowing my dad's side of the family, they were interested. They, not like in a petty way, they wanted the best for me, and they wanted to be supportive and loving. That's just the kind of people they are. And so the first time I brought and this was my last ex, it was the first boyfriend I brought to a holiday dinner. They were so awesome about it. I'll never forget my Aunt Melody. I just love her so much. She's like, oh, I just love gay people. I love Neil Patrick Harris. I love Wanda Sykes. I love Ellen DeGeneres. And she started naming every gay celebrity she knew of. Which is awesome. Like I said, this stuff doesn't embarrass me. It doesn't offend me. I just was so flattered. I'm totally out now. And I'm totally secure now. Now, mind you, this was at least 7 years ago that I came out to the very last people in my family. You know, it shaped me as who I am now. I feel like I like the person that I am now. I think if, you know, 15, 16-year-old me could see the me that I am now, I'd be proud and eager to turn into who I am now. That's kind of like very biographical. I know this has probably been a very long video and it's going to take a lot of editing, so I'm going to start on that now. But I just kind of wanted to share it with you. A lot of people have been talking about their coming out stories, and it's very personal, and it's a great opportunity to understand people better and connect with people. And so I thought I'd share it with you guys. And you know, if you're in the closet, just know that it gets better. And I don't just mean on a personal level. It got better for me, but it's also getting better for society, because when I was in high school, the thought that one day I could marry somebody that I truly loved, now people are coming out left and right. We can marry in the US. The society is getting better. We're moving in the right direction. It might be slow. Transgender people are still under fire, Gay people are still under fire, but eventually things will get better. So that is my coming out story. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.
Made a wrong turn once or twice, dug my way out, blood and fire, bad decisions, that's alright. Welcome to my silly life. Mistreated, misplaced, misunderstood, Mr. No way, it's all good. It didn't slow me down. Mistaken, always second guessing, underestimated. Look, I'm still around.